in a distant corner of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of most civilizations, an alien council gathered on their shimmering orbital station. The station floated like a jewel in the vastness of space, its surface glinting with light from the nearby stars. Inside, leaders from across different star systems sat around a large circular table. Their faces were tense, and their voices carried a mix of fear and disbelief. Something unusual had been discovered, something that defied everything they thought they knew about the universe. A scout ship sent to explore a remote nebula had returned with alarming footage. It showed massive warships drifting silently through the void, their hulls sleek and dark, almost blending into the shadows of space. These ships were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen before. They bore strange marking symbols that matched ancient myths describing human vessels. For centuries, humans had been considered nothing more than a legend, a cautionary tale told to frighten younglings. But now, it seemed, those legends might be true. The council members exchanged uneasy glances as the images played on the screen. One by one, they leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the mysterious fleet. Some whispered prayers under their breath, while others clenched their fists in anger or fear. The implications were enormous. If humans truly existed, then what did that mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Would they seek revenge for past wrongs? Or would they simply ignore the rest of the universe, content to drift in silence? While the council debated, aboard one of the mysterious ships, Captain Ryan Hayes slowly opened his eyes. He blinked against the bright lights above him, his mind foggy and disoriented. Around him, the hum of machinery filled the air, a constant reminder that he was no longer on Earth or whatever planet he had called home before this mission began. His body felt stiff, as though it hadn't moved in years. And in a way, it hadn't. Cryosleep always left people feeling groggy, like they were waking up from a long, deep dream. Ryan swung his legs over the edge of the cryopod and stood shakily. He glanced at the row of pods beside him, each containing a member of his crew. One by one, they began to awaken, groaning and stretching as they adjusted to being conscious again. Jessica Monroe, the ship's navigator, rubbed her temples and looked around. Her sharp green eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail. She was the kind of person who noticed things others missed, and right now, she could tell something wasn't right. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice still thick with sleep. "Why are we awake?" Ryan shook his head. "I don't know yet. Let me check the logs." He walked over to a console built into the wall and tapped a few buttons. Lines of text scrolled across the screen, detailing the ship's status. According to the data, they had been adrift for decades far longer than planned. Their mission had been straightforward: explore new worlds, gather resources, and establish contact with any intelligent life they encountered. But somewhere along the way, something had gone terribly wrong. Daniel Carter, the ship's engineer, stumbled out of his pod and joined Ryan at the console. His curly brown hair stuck out in all directions, and his face was pale. "Anything useful?" he asked, leaning heavily on the edge of the console. "Not much," Ryan replied. "We're outside our intended course, and there's no record of what caused the deviation. Whatever happened, it knocked us off track big time." Jessica frowned. "And the rest of the fleet?" Ryan hesitated before answering. "Still here, according to the scanners. But I can't raise anyone on comms. Either they're in the same situation as us, or—" he trailed off, unwilling to finish the sentence. "Or what?" Daniel pressed. "Or we're on our own," Ryan said finally. "For now, anyway." As the three of them discussed their next steps, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Ryan spun around, his heart pounding. "What's happening now?" he demanded. Jessica rushed to another console and pulled up the ship's sensors. Her expression turned grim. "There's something out there," she said. "Multiple contacts, closing fast." Ryan's jaw tightened. Are they hailing us? No, Jessica replied. They're just watching. The tension in the room was palpable. None of them knew what to expect. Had they accidentally wandered into someone else's territory? Were these ships hostile, or merely curious? Without more information, it was impossible to say. All they could do was wait and prepare for the worst. Back on the orbital station, the Alien Council continued their heated discussion. Ambassador Lurka, a tall reptilian diplomat with scales that shimmered like emeralds, slammed her fist on the table. Enough, she hissed, her voice cutting through the chaos. We cannot afford to panic. Panicking solves nothing. Her words silenced the room, but only for a moment. Another leader, a stout insectoid creature with compound eyes, spoke up. Panic. You call this panic? Humans were supposed to be extinct, wiped out during the Great Purge. And now you expect us to believe they've somehow returned. Lurka narrowed her golden eyes. Believe it or not, the evidence is undeniable. Those ships match the descriptions in our oldest texts. If we ignore this, we risk repeating history. The argument raged on, with no clear resolution in sight. Meanwhile, outside the station, a small probe approached the human fleet cautiously. Its sensors pinged softly, sending waves of energy toward the mysterious vessels. On board, Ryan watched as the readings spiked. Someone's scanning us, he said, probably trying to figure out who we are. Should we respond? Jessica asked. Ryan hesitated. Responding could mean opening themselves up to attack. On the other hand, ignoring the probe might make them seem even more threatening. After a moment, he nodded. Send a signal. Just a simple greeting. No need to give away too much. Jessica typed a brief message into the communication system. Moments later, the probe exploded in a burst of light. Everyone on the bridge froze, staring at the empty space where the probe had been. Did we just destroy that thing? Daniel stammered. No, Ryan said firmly. That wasn't us. Someone else is out there, and they don't want us talking to whoever sent that probe. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. They weren't alone in this part of the galaxy, and whoever else was out there didn't seem friendly. As the crew scrambled to analyze the situation, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something much bigger than themselves. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain. Humanity's return to the galactic stage would not go unnoticed. The Alien Council on the orbital station was in chaos. The destruction of their probe had sent shockwaves through the chamber, both literally and figuratively. Ambassador Lurka's scales shimmered with agitation as she paced back and forth, her sharp claws clicking against the polished floor. This changes everything, she hissed, her voice low but cutting through the murmurs of the other leaders. If humans are truly capable of such aggression, we cannot afford to underestimate them. Her words did little to calm the rising panic. Across the table, an avian leader with iridescent feathers flared his wings in frustration. Aggression. We don't even know if they fired that shot. For all we know, it could have been a malfunction or a trap set by someone else entirely. His beak clicked as he spoke, a sign of his growing anxiety. Lurka turned to him sharply. Do not play games with semantics. Those ships are armed, and whoever controls them is dangerous. Whether they fired that shot or not, the fact remains. They are a threat. The room erupted into arguments once again. Some leaders called for immediate military action, while others urged caution, fearing retaliation. In the midst of the chaos, a holographic image of the human fleet flickered to life at the center of the table. The sleek, dark warships loomed ominously, their size and design unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. It was clear that these vessels were built for power and precision, and they carried an aura of menace that made even the most seasoned diplomats uneasy. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the human fleet, Captain Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge, staring at the empty space where the probe had been moments before. His hands rested on the railing, his knuckles white from gripping it too tightly. Jessica Monroe sat at her console nearby, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to piece together what had happened. Daniel Carter leaned over her shoulder, scratching his head in confusion. "I'm telling you, it wasn't us," Daniel said, his voice tinged with frustration. "Our weapons systems haven't been activated since we came out of cryosleep. Whoever took out that probe has tech we can't even begin to understand." Ryan nodded slowly. "Then we're dealing with more than one faction here. Someone doesn't want us talking to those aliens and they're willing to use force to keep it that way." Jessica frowned, her eyes locked on the sensor readings. "But why? If they wanted to stop us, why not just attack directly? Why destroy the probe instead?" Ryan didn't have an answer. The situation was too complex, too unpredictable. He turned to Nathan Brooks, the ship's tactical expert, who had been quietly observing the exchange. Nathan was a tall man with broad shoulders and a calm demeanor, the kind of person who thrived under pressure. "Nathan, what do you think?" Ryan asked. Nathan crossed his arms and leaned back against the wall. "It's possible they're testing us, seeing how we'll react. Or maybe they're trying to provoke the aliens into attacking us first. Either way, we need to stay sharp. One wrong move, and we could end up caught in the middle of something we don't fully understand." Ryan nodded again, his mind racing. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and completely in the dark about who or what they were facing. But one thing was certain, they couldn't afford to sit idly by and wait for the next move. "All right," he said finally. "Here's what we're going to do. Jessica, keep scanning for any signs of movement. Daniel, I want you to go over every system on this ship, top to bottom. Make sure nothing's compromised. Nathan, start working on defensive strategies. If someone decides to take a shot at us, I want to be ready." The crew sprang into action, each member focusing on their assigned task. As they worked, Ryan stepped onto the observation deck, a small room with a panoramic view of space. He stared out at the stars, his thoughts heavy. He had always dreamed of exploring the galaxy, of discovering new worlds and meeting alien species. But this was not what he had envisioned. This was not exploration, it was survival. Back on the orbital station, the Council had reached a decision. Ambassador Lurka would lead a diplomatic envoy to the human fleet, hoping to establish communication and avoid further conflict. It was a risky move, but the alternative full-scale war was unthinkable. As Lurka prepared to depart, her aides briefed her on what little they knew about humans. Ancient texts described them as fierce warriors, relentless in their pursuit of expansion. But those same texts also claimed they had been wiped out during the Great Purge, a catastrophic event that reshaped the galaxy centuries ago. Lurka's shuttle approached the human flagship cautiously, its engines humming softly. As it drifted closer, on board, she reviewed her notes one last time, her sharp mind cataloging every detail. She knew the stakes were high. If she failed, the fragile peace between the galaxy's factions could shatter, plunging them all into chaos. When the shuttle docked, Ryan and his senior officers greeted Lurka in the ship's main conference room. The reptilian ambassador stepped inside, her golden eyes scanning the humans with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Ryan extended a hand in greeting, but Lurka ignored it, choosing instead to bow slightly, a gesture of respect among her people. "I am Ambassador Lurka," she began, her voice cool and measured. "I represent the Galactic Council, an alliance of civilizations dedicated to maintaining order and stability across the stars. Your presence here has caused concern. We seek answers." Ryan nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "Understood. I'm Captain Ryan Hayes, commander of this fleet. Our mission was meant to be peaceful, to explore new worlds and establish contact with intelligent life. But clearly, things have gotten complicated." Lurka tilted her head, studying him intently. "Complicated indeed. You must understand. Humanity is a name spoken only in whispers among my people. Many believe you were eradicated long ago. To see your ships now." She trailed off, her tone laced with unease. "We didn't ask for this," Ryan said firmly. "We woke up adrift, confused, and unsure of where we are. All we want is to find our place in this galaxy without causing harm." Lurka, as eyes narrowed. "Your actions speak louder than your words, Captain." "The destruction of our probe wasn't us," Ryan interrupted, his voice steady but firm. "Someone else is out there, and they don't want us talking to you. That should tell you something." For a moment, Lurka was silent, her sharp mind processing his words. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. I will relay your message to the Council. But know this: if you pose a threat to the galaxy, we will act accordingly." With that, she turned and left, her shuttle departing as quietly as it had arrived. Ryan watched it go, his jaw clenched. He knew this was far from over. The aliens were scared, and scared people made rash decisions. As the shuttle disappeared into the void, Maria Lopez, the ship's communications officer, entered the conference room. Her dark hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and her brown eyes sparkled with intelligence. "Captain," she said, holding up a datapad, "I've intercepted some transmissions from the orbital station. They're mobilizing fleets, factions, all heading this way." Ryan sighed deeply, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "Of course they are," he muttered. Turning to Maria, he added, "Keep monitoring their movements. Let me know the moment they change course." Maria nodded and hurried off, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts. He glanced at the stars outside the window, their light faint but unwavering. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, whether they liked it or not. And now, they would have to fight not just to survive, but to prove that they deserved a place among the stars. News of the human fleet spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Across the galaxy, traders, spies, and diplomats carried fragments of information to every corner of known space. In a bustling marketplace, on a jungle planet called Vera, Kale, a wiry human trader with sun-weathered skin and sharp green eyes, leaned against a stall filled with exotic fruits. He listened intently as two alien merchants whispered about the mysterious ships that had appeared near an uncharted nebula. "They say the humans are back," one of the merchants muttered, his voice low but excited. "The ones who vanished centuries ago. Some claim they're ghosts, others say they've been hiding all this time." The second merchant, a squat insectoid with shimmering wings, clicked its mandibles nervously. "Ghosts or not, their ships are real, and they're armed to the teeth. The council is in an uproar. Some want peace, others are calling for war." Kale's ears perked up at the mention of war. He had heard rumors before, whispers of ancient legends about humanity's dominance in the galaxy. But this was different. This was real. His mind raced as he considered the implications. If humans truly were back, it could mean trouble, opportunity. Either way, he knew he couldn't ignore it. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship, Captain Ryan Hayes sat in his quarters, staring at a holographic map of the surrounding region. The map displayed clusters of red dots, each representing an alien fleet mobilizing toward their position. It was clear that the galaxy wasn't taking any chances with humanity's sudden reappearance. Ryan rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on him. He had never asked for this. None of them had. They were explorers, scientists, engineers, not soldiers. Yet here they were, thrust into the middle of a galactic standoff. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, straightening in his chair. Maria Lopez entered, holding a datapad tightly in her hands. Her expression was grim. "Captain, I've intercepted more transmissions. It's worse than we thought. Multiple factions are forming alliances. They're planning to surround us." Ryan frowned. "How long do we have?" "Not long," Maria admitted. "Some fleets are already en route, At their current speed, they'll reach us within days. Ryan nodded slowly, his mind working overtime. Days weren't enough. They needed time to regroup, to figure out who their enemies were and who might be willing to help them. But time was a luxury they didn't have. "All right," he said finally. "We need to act fast. Call a meeting with the senior officers, and get Jessica Monroe up here. I want her take on our options." Maria nodded and left, closing the door. Behind her, Ryan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, one set by forces far beyond their understanding. Whoever had destroyed the alien probe clearly wanted chaos, and they were succeeding. In the conference room, the crew gathered around the table, their faces tense. Jessica Monroe stood at the head of the group, pointing to the holographic map. "Here's the situation," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. These fleets are coming from all directions, and they're moving fast. If we stay here, we'll be boxed in before we even know what hit us." Nathan Brooks crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "So what's the plan? Fight or run?" Ryan stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Running isn't an option. We don't know where to go, and we can't risk leading them to Earth if it still exists. Fighting, on the other hand." He paused, glancing at each member of the crew. "Fighting might buy us some time, but we need to be smart about it. We can't take on everyone at once." Jessica nodded, agreed. "Our best bet is to split the fleet. Send smaller groups to intercept key targets while keeping the main force hidden. That way, we can disrupt their plans without exposing ourselves too much." Daniel Carter, who had been quietly observing the discussion, spoke up hesitantly. "What? About reinforcements? Are we sure we're completely alone out here?" Ryan shook his head. "We can't count on anyone else showing up. For now, it's just us." The room fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. They were on their own, facing overwhelming odds. But none of them voiced defeat. Each member of the crew had signed up for adventure, for discovery, and if survival meant fighting, then so be it. Back on the orbital station, Ambassador Lurka reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing unease. The human fleet's movements were erratic, almost unpredictable. One moment they seemed to be preparing for battle, the next, they appeared to be retreating. It was as though they were buying time, but for what? Her assistant, a slender amphibian with translucent skin, entered the room carrying a stack of datapads. "Ambassador," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "More reports have come in. Several neutral factions are considering joining the coalition against the humans. They fear what might happen if humanity reclaims its former power." Lurka sighed deeply, her scales dulling slightly, a sign of stress among her species. "Fear breeds irrationality," she muttered. "If we let panic dictate our actions, we'll only make things worse." Her assistant hesitated before speaking again. "There's something else. Rumors are spreading that the humans may have allies, rogue traders and smugglers who see potential profit in siding with them." Lurka's eyes narrowed. "Allies. Interesting." She tapped her claws against the desk, deep in thought. If the humans managed to form alliances, it could tip the balance of power in their favor. But why would anyone side with them? Humanity was an unknown variable, a wild card in an already unstable equation. On Vera, Kale weighed his options carefully. He had built a reputation as a reliable trader, someone who could deliver rare goods to even the most dangerous corners of the galaxy. But this was different. Aligning himself with humanity could make him a targetor. It could elevate him to new heights. After hours of deliberation, he made his decision. He sent a secure message to the human fleet, using encrypted channels to avoid detection. "This is Kale," the message read. "I hear you're looking for friends. I might be able to help for a price." Maria intercepted the message shortly after it was sent. Her eyes widened as she read it, and she quickly brought it to Ryan's attention. "Captain," she said, handing him the datapad. "We've got a lead. Someone claiming to be a trader wants to meet. Says he has resources we might need." Ryan studied the message carefully. "Could be a trap," he said after a moment. "But if it's legit, it could give us the edge we need. Set up a meeting, but make sure we're ready for anything." Maria nodded and relayed the instructions to Kale. Within hours, a small shuttle descended from the jungle planet's atmosphere, heading straight for the flagship. When Kale stepped onto the ship, he was met by Nathan Brooks, who sized him up with a skeptical glare. "You're the trader?" Nathan asked, his tone gruff. Kale smirked, unfazed by the hostility. "That's right. And you must be the muscle. Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble." Nathan didn't respond, instead escorting Kale to the conference room where Ryan and the others waited. As Kale entered, Ryan stood and extended a hand. "I'm Captain Ryan Hayes. Thanks for coming." Kale shook his hand firmly. "Call me Kale. Now, let's cut to the chase. You're in trouble, and I can help, but only if you're willing to pay." Ryan gestured for Kale to sit. "Tell us what you know." Over the next hour, Kale laid out his proposal. He had connections with rogue factions, smugglers, and mercenaries who operated outside the law. Many of them were wary of the Galactic Council and would jump at the chance to defy them. In exchange for supplies, weapons, and protection, they would provide intelligence, resources, and possibly even fighters. When Kale finished, Ryan exchanged a glance with Jessica and Nathan. It was a risky move, trusting someone they barely knew, but desperate times called for desperate measures. "All right," Ryan said finally, "we'll accept your offer for now. But understand this, if you betray us, there will be consequences." Kale grinned, clearly pleased with himself. "Don't worry, Captain, betrayal isn't good for business." As Kale left the ship, Ryan turned to his crew. "Start preparing for the worst," he said, "because if those fleets arrive before we're ready, we won't get a second chance." The crew dispersed, each member focused on their tasks. Ryan stayed behind, staring out the window at the endless expanse of stars. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, and the universe was watching. Whether they succeeded or failed, one thing was certain: the legend of humanity was about to be rewritten. The days that followed were a blur of activity aboard the flagship. Every crew member worked tirelessly, their movements sharp and purposeful as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Captain Ryan Hayes moved from one section of the ship to another, checking on progress and offering encouragement where needed. The tension in the air was thick, but it was also mixed with determination. No one wanted to admit defeat. Not yet. In the engine room, Daniel Carter sweated over a tangle of wires and circuit boards. His hands moved quickly, repairing damage that had gone unnoticed during their long drift in space. "If we're going to survive this," he muttered to himself, "we need every system running at full capacity." Nearby, an assistant handed him tools without being asked. Their partnership seamless after years of working together. Up on the bridge, Jessica Monroe monitored the incoming fleets with growing concern. Her fingers danced across the console, adjusting sensors and recalibrating scanners to get a clearer picture of the enemy's movements. "They're spreading out," she reported to Ryan, who stood behind her. "Looks like they're trying to surround us." Ryan nodded grimly. "Exactly what we expected. Keep tracking them. If they make a move, I want to know about it immediately." Jessica turned to face him, her green eyes steady despite the pressure. "We can't hold them off forever, Captain. Even with Kale's help, we're outnumbered." "I know," Ryan replied softly. "But we don't have to win outright. We just need to stay alive long enough to figure out our next step." Meanwhile, Maria Lopez worked in the communications bay, sifting through intercepted transmissions. Her brow furrowed, as she pieced together fragments of alien conversations. Some factions were eager to attack, while others hesitated, unsure of humanity's true intentions. One message caught her attention: a heated debate between two alien leaders, arguing over whether humans should be seen as allies or enemies. She flagged it for Ryan's review, knowing it might offer valuable insight into their opponents' mindset. On the orbital station, Ambassador Lurka faced mounting pressure from the Council. Many members demanded swift action against the human fleet, claiming that any delay would only embolden them. Others urged patience, fearing that an attack could escalate into a full-scale war. Lurka found herself caught in the middle, torn between her duty to maintain peace and her responsibility to protect her people. At one particularly tense meeting, a burly mammalian leader slammed his fist on the table. "Enough talk," he roared. "The humans are dangerous. They've already shown us that. We must strike now, before they grow stronger." Lurka's scales shimmered with frustration. "And what do you propose we do? Attack blindly and risk losing thousands of lives? We don't even know their capabilities yet." The mammalian leader leaned forward, his teeth bared. "Then send scouts more probes, more ships. Gather intelligence. But don't sit here doing nothing while they prepare for war." Lurka sighed, knowing he wasn't entirely wrong. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that rushing into conflict would only make matters worse. "Very well," she said finally. "I will organize reconnaissance missions. But mark my words, if we act rashly, we may regret it." As the council dispersed, Lurka retreated to her private quarters. She stared out the window at the stars, her mind heavy with doubt. Humanity's sudden reappearance had thrown the galaxy into chaos, and she feared there was no easy solution. For centuries, humans had been nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale told to remind other species of the dangers of unchecked ambition. Now, they were real, and their presence threatened to upend everything. Back aboard the flagship, Ryan called another meeting with his senior officers. They gathered in the conference room, their faces etched with exhaustion, but still resolute. Ryan stood at the head of the table, his expression serious. "All right, listen up," he began. "Kale has confirmed that several rogue factions are willing to support us, at least for now. He's arranging supply drops and intelligence sharing, which should give us some breathing room. But we can't rely on them completely. We need to take matters into our own hands." Nathan Brooks leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "What's the plan, Captain?" Ryan gestured to the holographic map floating above the center of the table. "We'll split the fleet into 3 groups. Group 1 will engage the nearest enemy fleet, drawing their attention away from our main force. Group 2 will move to intercept reinforcements before they can join the fight. Group 3, the largest group, will remain hidden, ready to strike if things go south." Jessica studied the map carefully. "It's risky. If either Group 1 or 2 fails, we could lose the entire fleet." "I know," Ryan admitted. "But it's the best chance we've got. We can't let them box us in." Daniel raised a hand, hesitantly. "What about the engines? Some of the ships are still running below optimal levels. If we push them too hard, we'll manage." Ryan interrupted firmly. "Do whatever it takes to keep them operational. That goes for everyone. This isn't just about us, it's about proving that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy." The crew nodded, understanding the weight of his words. As the meeting ended, each member returned to their duties, their resolve strengthened by Ryan's leadership. Despite the odds stacked against them, they refused to give up. Later that evening, Kale's shuttle docked once again, this time carrying crates of supplies and weapons. He greeted Ryan with a confident grin. "Told you I'd come through," he said, gesturing to the cargo. "This should keep you going for a while." Ryan shook his hand firmly. "You've earned our trust for now. Don't make me regret it." Kale chuckled. "Wouldn't dream of it, Captain. Besides, I've got my own reasons for wanting to see humanity succeed." As the supplies were unloaded and distributed among the fleet, Maria approached Ryan with new information. "Captain, I've decoded more transmissions. It looks like the aliens are planning a coordinated assault. They're calling it Operation Eclipse." Ryan frowned. "When?" "Soon," Maria replied. "Within the next 48 hours. Ryan clenched his jaw, his mind racing. Time was running out, and they still weren't fully prepared. But waiting wasn't an option, they had to act. "All right," he said finally. "Let's move. Execute the plan." The crew sprang into action, their movements precise and efficient. Ships detached from the main formation, slipping silently into the void as they took their assigned positions. Ryan watched from the bridge, his heart pounding. This was at the moment they had been preparing for. Whether they succeeded or failed, humanity's fate rested in their hands. Hours passed, and the tension aboard the flagship grew unbearable. Then, just as dawn broke over the edge of a distant star, alarms blared throughout the ship. Jessica's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, multiple contacts approaching fast. They're here." Ryan gripped the railing tightly, his knuckles white. "All hands, battle stations. This is it. Stay sharp." The first wave of enemy ships loomed on the horizon, their forms jagged and menacing against the backdrop of space. Nathan's voice came through the comms, calm but urgent. "Weapons online. Shields at maximum. Ready when you are, Captain." Ryan took a deep breath, steadying himself. Fire at will. The silence of space shattered as beams of energy streaked across the void, lighting up the darkness like fireworks. The battle had begun. The battle erupted with a ferocity that none of the crew aboard the flagship had ever experienced. Beams of energy crisscrossed the void, lighting up the darkness like streaks of lightning. The enemy ships moved with precision, their formations tight and coordinated. They clearly had experience in warfare, but humanity's fleet fought back with equal determination. Each shot fired was a statement to declaration that they would not go down without a fight. On the bridge, Captain Ryan Hayes stood firm, his eyes locked on the viewscreen as explosions bloomed in the distance. Jessica Monroe worked tirelessly at her console, tracking the movements of both friend and foe. Her voice remained steady despite the chaos around her. "Group 1 has engaged the lead fleet," she reported. "They're holding their ground for now." Ryan nodded, his jaw clenched. "What about Group 2? Have they reached the reinforcements?" "Almost there," Jessica replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "But the enemy is faster than we anticipated. They've sent interceptors to block them." Nathan Brooks, stationed at the tactical console, leaned forward, his face tense. "We need to thin out those interceptors, or Group 2 won't stand a chance." Ryan turned to him sharply. "Do it. Use everything we've got." Nathan didn't hesitate. He activated a series of maneuvers designed to draw the interceptors closer, luring them into a trap. Once they were within range, he unleashed a barrage of missiles, each one finding its mark with deadly accuracy. The screen lit up with flashes of light as several enemy ships were obliterated. "That should buy Group 2 some time," Nathan said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely satisfied. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter worked furiously in the engine room, ensuring that the flagship and every other ship in the fleet were operational. Sweat dripped from his brow as he adjusted power levels and rerouted energy to critical systems. "Come on, hold together," he muttered under his breath, patting a console affectionately. Around him, engineers scrambled to fix minor malfunctions before they became major problems. Despite the pressure, Daniel couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. These ships had been built to last, and they weren't going to fail, not today. Back on the orbital station, Ambassador Lurka watched the battle unfold through a live feed provided by reconnaissance drones. Her golden eyes narrowed as she observed the humans' tactics. They were clever, adaptive, and relentless qualities she hadn't expected. She turned to her assistant, who stood nearby, clutching a datapad. "What are the casualty reports?" she asked, her voice low. The assistant hesitated before answering. "Heavy losses on both sides, Ambassador. But the humans, they're holding their own." Lurka sighed deeply, her scales shimmering faintly. This was supposed to be a simple operation, a show of force to intimidate them into submission. Instead, it's turned into a bloodbath. Her assistant shifted uncomfortably. "Should we order a retreat?" "No," Lurka replied firmly. "Retreating now would only embolden them. We must press on, but carefully. If we lose control of this situation, the consequences could ripple across the galaxy." As the battle raged on, Maria Lopez intercepted a transmission from an unexpected source. "Kale." His voice crackled over the comms, urgent but calm. "Captain, I've got something you need to hear. There's a faction within the enemy ranks there, considering breaking away. They don't want to fight anymore." Ryan frowned, leaning closer to the speaker. "Are you sure about this?" "As sure as I can be," Kale replied. "If you can convince them to switch sides, it might turn the tide in your favor." Ryan exchanged a glance with Jessica, who nodded slightly. It was a risky move, but they didn't have many options left. "All right," Ryan said finally. "Patch me through to their frequency. Let's see if we can make this work." Maria worked quickly, establishing a secure channel between the flagship and the wavering faction. When the connection was made, Ryan stepped up to the microphone, his voice clear and commanding. "This is Captain Ryan Hayes, of the human fleet. To those of you considering abandoning this feat, I understand your hesitation. You've been told that we're dangerous, that we're a threat to your way of life. But let me ask you this. Does destroying innocent lives align with your values? Does blind obedience to fear bring you peace?" There was a long pause, during which Ryan wondered if his words had fallen on deaf ears. Then, a hesitant voice responded, We don't want war. But how can we trust you?" "You can't," Ryan admitted honestly. "Not yet. But I promise you this. We're not here to conquer or dominate. We're here to survive, to find our place in this galaxy. Join us, and together, we can end this conflict." Another pause followed, longer this time. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Very well, we will stand down. But no, this if you betray us, there will be no second chances." Ryan exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. "Understood. Thank you." As the faction withdrew from the battle, the remaining enemy forces faltered. Their numbers dwindled, and their formations grew disorganized. Sensing weakness, Ryan ordered a counterattack. The human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing as they pushed the enemy back. For the first time since the battle began, hope flickered among the crew. In the aftermath of the skirmish, Ryan gathered his senior officers in the conference room. The mood was somber, but tinged with cautious optimism. "We held our ground," Ryan said, addressing the group. "But this isn't over. The enemy will regroup, and when they do, they'll come at us harder than ever." Jessica nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We need more than just brute force. We need to understand why they're so afraid of us. What did humanity do in the past that made them erase us from history?" Ryan glanced at Daniel, who had joined the meeting after finishing his repairs. "Daniel, any luck digging into the archives?" Daniel shrugged, looking sheepish. "I've found fragments, but nothing concrete. Just rumors about wars, alliances, betrayals. Nothing that explains why everyone thinks we're extinct." "Well, keep looking," Ryan urged. "If we're going to win this, we need answers." Later that night, Ryan retreated to his quarters, exhausted but unable to sleep. He stared out the window at the stars, his mind racing. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, and the universe was watching. Every decision they made carried weight just for themselves. but for the future of their species. As daunting as the task felt, Ryan knew one thing for certain: they couldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. Across the galaxy, whispers of humanity's resistance spread like wildfire. On Vera, traders and smugglers debated whether to throw their lot in with the humans. On distant planets, ordinary citizens questioned the Council's motives, wondering if humanity truly posed a threat or if they were simply victims of fear and misinformation. And on the orbital station, Ambassador Lurka paced her quarters, her thoughts heavy with uncertainty. The legend of humanity had been rewritten once already. Now, it seemed, the story was still unfolding.